Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into the story of Andre Rieu, the famous waltz king.
Right.
We're using this really interesting new note that's just packed with details about his life, his career, everything.
And it feels pretty timely, doesn't it, with the news about him having to cancel those Mexico City shows? He's 74 now.
Exactly. It makes you sort of step back and look at the whole journey. How did he even get here?
Yeah, this incredible global thing he's built.
For sure. So this isn't just like a list of dates and concerts. We want to dig into what really drove him, the surprising moments, the sheer persistence behind it all.
And we've got these detailed notes, personal stuff, which should give us a good picture.
Yeah. Our mission really is to figure out what kind of impact he actually had on classical music, which is pretty controversial, and maybe what we can learn from his, let's say, unconventional way of doing things.
Definitely unconventional.
Okay, so where do we start? Maastricht, Netherlands, 1949. That's where he was born.
And the notes paint this picture of his family life as, well, quite disciplined, maybe even a bit cold emotionally.
Yeah, his father was a conductor, so music was everywhere, but it sounds like it was approached with this real strictness.
Yeah. The notes really stress that lack of, outward affection. His mom was apparently all about grades, performance.
And Andre himself actually said, my parents didn't love me, which is, wow.
That kind of upbringing, those early years, it must leave a mark, right?
Oh, definitely. The notes mention he went to therapy later on, suggesting, yeah, that stuff stuck with him.
But then there's this interesting turning point, age 5.
Right. Not just the violin, but his violin teacher. She was 18.
Yeah, there was something about her, the connection, that just clicked for him.
And this idea he picked up on, vibra.
Exactly. Not just notes on a page, but the feeling, the soul of the music, the emotional bit.
Which seems totally opposite to how he saw music at home.
Completely. It's a direct contrast to that more academic, maybe rigid approach.
And his dad. I mean, the note quotes him saying, I didn't educate you to play waltzes. Ouch.
Yeah. Talk about setting the stage, that dismissal of the very thing that moved Andre.
I feel like that rejection almost became the reason he leaned into those waltzes later.
You could see it that way. And then the whole situation with Marjorie, his future wife.
Oh, right. He brings her home, and his mother just rejects her. Tells Andre to go to his room.
Yeah. Pretty dramatic. And that was it, apparently. He left home, chose his own way.
That's a big step. And sadly, his father died in 1992. Never got to see the huge success Andre would have.
Makes you think, doesn't it, about their relationship, what might have been.
Maybe that lack of approval, though, kind of pushed him harder to prove something.
Could be. The notes mention him noticing something in the orchestra he played in later, like during the main concert, maybe some players seemed a bit disengaged.
But then the encores.
Exactly. They play Strauss waltzes, and boom, the audience lights up, energy, connection, joy. He saw that.
And that story about playing for the dying woman, that seems key. Realizing music could genuinely touch people, evoke deep feelings.
Yeah, not just impress them technically. It feels like that became central for him.
So he starts his own group, the Maastricht Salon Orchestra. He's 29, broke apparently.
Yeah. Small gigs, old school waltzes, not exactly glamorous, but it was the music he believed in.
Doing his own thing.
And then there was that performance of Leher's Gold and Silver Waltz. The notes say he just nailed it, felt like the music was alive.
Even when people called it cheesy.
Right. His reaction was basically, hey, classical music can party too. That attitude right there.
Challenging the norms from the get-go.
Definitely. But then, around 87, he starts thinking bigger, something more theatrical, like Strauss himself, the showman.
Which was a risk, financially. A big leap.
Huge leap, and that led to the Johann Strauss Orchestra, January 1st, 1988. Pretty quiet start.
12 musicians. Not a huge crowd, but the approach was different.
Totally. The notes point this out. No stuffy black suits, no dead silence. Instead, you get laughter, folk tunes mixed in, dramatic lights.
A whole different vibe.
And you can guess the reaction, right? Critics, not impressed.
But the audiences.
They loved it. It was accessible, fun, less intimidating.
Okay, so then comes the moment, the big one. May 1995, Champions League final, Vienna.
Ajax versus Bayern Munich, huge football match.
Halftime show.
Yeah.
And instead of like a rock band, out comes Andre Rieu and his orchestra.
Playing Shostakovich. The waltz Nomen 2, which, maybe not your typical upbeat Strauss waltz, but it's incredibly catchy and memorable.
What a choice for that stage, 50,000 people there.
And 300 million watching on TV.
Wow.
The Notebook calls it a cultural earthquake, and it kind of was.
Because afterwards, sales just exploded, right? Strauss and Company.
Unbelievable. 200,000 copies just like that in the Netherlands. #1 for 19 weeks. 3 million worldwide eventually.
For classical music, that's insane.
Totally unheard of. And you can imagine the reaction from the classical establishment.
Oh, yeah. They weren't happy.
Called him a fraud. Said he was turning serious music into a spectacle.
It really shows that classic tension, doesn't it? Popular appeal versus, critical approval.
Yeah, the backlash got pretty intense. There was that famous conductor calling it musical pornography.
Strong words.
And the criticism covered everything. The bright costumes, the jokes, simplifying the arrangements.
And then, that stage. 2008. The Schönbrunn Palace replica.
Oh, man. 34 million. Fountains, ice rinks, actual horses.
I mean, that's definitely spectacle.
Yeah.
You can see why traditionalists might object.
But Ryu just stuck to his guns, didn't he? Music is for everyone. Universal language.
And if you looked at his audiences, it was true. All sorts of people.
Absolutely. They weren't the typical symphony crowd.
And that belief clearly worked, commercially speaking. Strauss and Company wasn't just a hit, it was massive.
Record-breaking. 750,000 in the Netherlands alone. Apparently, record stores had to make bigger classical sections because of him. He really shook things up.
He didn't just play Strauss, he made it popular again. Way more popular.
Yeah, the note says performances of Strauss's music shot up 16 times by 2010. That's huge.
And his orchestra grew too, from 12 to over 60 musicians. Bigger than Strauss's own orchestra, apparently.
And he did that tribute album in '99 for Strauss's centennial. So there was respect there, alongside the showmanship.
That Schönbrunn tour, though, the logistics must have been insane.
100 workers. 6 days just to set up the stage each time.
But people came. Packed stadiums.
Yeah.
Melbourne, nearly 90,000 people in 3 nights. That's rock star numbers.
And his DVDs were outselling pop stars. His tours were up there with the biggest names globally.
Over 500 platinum awards. It's just a level of success you don't usually see in that world.
No, it's really unprecedented.
But it hasn't all been smooth sailing. There have been tough times, too.
Yeah, the notes mentioned the death of his trombonist, Ruud Merckx, in 2016. Really tragic.
Happened during a UK Christmas tour, right? They just stopped everything immediately.
Shows how close they were, like a family. Merckx had been with him over 20 years. It hit everyone hard. Ryu, the orchestra, the fans.
Yeah, the notes say crowds were maybe a bit smaller when he first came back. A shared sadness.
And then his own health. That collapsed in Mexico City this year, 2024.
Sounds like a perfect storm of things. Jet lag, altitude, being ill.
Plus, apparently he's had balance issues before, back in 2010, and performed with a fever in 2019, just pushing himself constantly.
Yeah, the note says he seemed genuinely defeated backstage, which sounds unusual for him.
And now his son Pierre is stepping in more, managing things, maybe aiming for smaller, safer shows.
But becoming his protector, the note says. A shift, definitely.
Yeah. And besides the music and health, there was that legal stuff, too.
Oh, the child labor law thing in 2015
Oh.
with the Romanian musicians.
Right. Big fine initially, though. It got overturned eventually. Must have been incredibly stressful.
Yeah, not great headlines. But then you also see these other sides, right?
Yeah.
The generosity.
Like replacing those stolen instruments for the disabled musicians.
And donating steel for Notre Dame after the fire.
And that whole saga with his violin, the 1732 Stradivarius, nearly lost it, got it back, needs constant care.
It's like a character in the story itself.
Totally. And speaking of behind the scenes, his wife, Marjorie.
The notes really highlight her role, don't they? Kind of the hidden strategist, even an anonymous songwriter.
Seems like a really crucial partnership. Very powerful. And them buying and restoring that old castle.
It says a lot about the scale of things. Building something lasting.
And now the granddaughter, Daisy, rehearsing piano with the orchestra. You see a potential next chapter there.
Like a dynasty, maybe. Though they seem pretty relaxed about succession. Just letting it happen.
Yeah, observe and see. But back to his impact on classical music itself.
He really did smash the old rules, didn't he? The formality, the silence.
Totally. People dancing in the aisles, laughing, joining in, special effects. It was a completely different experience.
He made it fun. Accessible.
And he was smart about using modern tools, too. Social media. That Banny Boy video from Dublin went viral.
He connected with people directly. Bypassed the traditional gatekeepers in a way.
His tours weren't just concerts, they felt like events, planned meticulously, using digital stuff to build buzz.
Even that film, The Dream Continues. Apparently, it sort of encouraged that more relaxed vibe at concerts,
And all the while, many critics just kept shaking their heads.
while the audience numbers just kept growing and growing. It's such a contrast.
It really is. And the notes suggest a lot of his drive comes from deep down, from his past.
That relationship with his father, the lack of approval, the distance, it clearly affected him deeply.
To the point of skipping his father's funeral, and his brother left home too. Says a lot about the family dynamic.
Therapy seems to have been important for him, dealing with that stuff.
And maybe that reported real estate empire he built after some financial trouble earlier. Perhaps that's about seeking security, control, stemming from the past.
Could be. And he's planning a return to Maastricht soon, the note says. That could be quite something for him.
Yeah, full circle. But through it all, his loyalty to his musicians really stands out.
Putting them ahead of his Stradivarius violin, that's telling.
It speaks volumes, and even with the health scares, he insists he wants to keep playing. Jokes about playing till he's 140.
The dedication is immense.
It feels like music for him is more than just a job. It's therapy. It's tied up with who he is, his whole life story, maybe even his weapon against the past, in a way.
So, wrapping this up, Andre Rieu's story, it's really about defying expectations, isn't it?
Absolutely. Taking a difficult start and just pouring all that passion into music and completely changing the game for how classical music reaches people.
Yeah, we saw some real aha moments
Yeah.
discovering Vibra, that incredible Champions League gig. The sheer nerve of the Palace tour, it's full of surprises.
Definitely not a predictable path.
And it makes you think, doesn't it? His willingness to break the rules, to focus purely on that emotional hit with the audience. How does that sit with you when you think about art or entertainment? What matters most?
Yeah, it's a great question. And seeing him face these recent health issues, but still being so committed, it really pushes us to ask, what actually defines success in art? What makes a legacy? Is it sticking to the rules, getting nods from the critics?
Or is it just connecting with millions, making them feel something?
Exactly. Moving people on that deep emotional level. It's definitely something to chew on.